This program aims to find solutions to your medical queries. It seeks answers to common health problems that have been hounding you. We will help you out in finding answers to your medical concerns. I'm Angel Jacob and this is MedTalk, your weekly on-air health consultation here on the Solar News Channel.
As the summer season continues throughout the country, the health hazards of a heat stroke alarm everyone. The Metro Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, has declared a heat stroke break among their enforcers who endure the sun's heat while on duty.
Kung makikita ng mga motorista na wala kami sa pwesto, iniiwas muna natin sila sa tindi ng init ng araw.
Tulad ng directive ni Chairman, magpa-provide kami ng water for them. Tapos yun ng 30 minutes na magbe-break muna sila, especially yung oras na talagang tirik ang araw. Siguro yung 30 minutes na napaka-importante nun.
The summer continues to brace the Philippines with an average high temperature of 34 degrees Celsius, and as a result of this, we are prone to various heat illnesses. This includes heat stroke, that is considered to be the most serious case of a heat injury. Heat stroke is a set of related symptoms in connection to the body's inability to cool down from acquiring too much heat.
Ang ano na tao kasi when it's a stroke, akala nila you have to be directly exposed under the sun. Doesn't have to be. Like for example, ngayon, halimbawa mainit sa labas, di ba? You're in a room na mainit din. May tendency like, say, kunwari, gym yan na nag-release ka ng so much fluids. So, hindi mo na replenish yung nawawala sa'yo.
Another medical problem during summer is dehydration. Dehydration is when we lose water in our body more than we have taken in.
Dapat mapalitan itong nawawalang tubig sa katawan. So, yun yung reason kung bakit ang isa sa major intervention sa heat stroke ay rehydration, para matanggal yung dehydration.
What are the symptoms of a heat stroke? How do we get dehydrated? Who are prone to this condition? What are the preventive measures we should take to avoid suffering from a heat stroke and getting dehydrated? All these and more tonight on MedTalk.
Last week, we discussed summer skin diseases. But aside from skin diseases, we also encounter other medical conditions during summer. These are heat stroke and dehydration. Joining us tonight is Dr. Steve Almeida, Chairman of the Emergency Department at the Asian Hospital and Medical Center. He's also the Senior Managing Partner of Emergency Medicine Associates Philippines Company. Also with us is Dr. Daniel Luchanco, Emergency Medicine Doctor at the Makati Medical Center, and he is also associated with the University of the East Ramon Magsaysay Memorial Medical Center and the Mandaluyong City Medical Center. You can participate in our discussion by calling our hotline. You can also follow us on Twitter, post on our Facebook page, or send us an email. Good evening, doctors.
Hi, Angel.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
The extreme heat has been a topic of conversation for the last couple of weeks. We want to understand the heat, cope with it, acclimatize our bodies so that we don't get a heat stroke or suffer from dehydration. First, let's talk about the heat stroke. Heat stroke or sunstroke is a medical emergency. Doctors,
Yes.
why is this a medical emergency?
Well, heat stroke is a layman's term, but medically, it's part of a group of heat emergencies or heat diseases, and it begins with heat cramps, heat syncope, heat exhaustion, and as earlier mentioned, heat stroke, which is the most serious of all these heat conditions. And you don't want your body to reach that point. So by educating yourself about the heat, by taking proper measures to cool yourself down, most people won't reach that level. And the Philippines, we're a tropical country. So our level of heat here is humid. We don't experience the dry heat that's usually present in North America or Europe. So there's also consequences to humid heat, but we're used to it. You know? So visitors from abroad who come here will say that it's difficult for them to breathe, to adjust, to walk about. But common sense will tell you don't walk about in the hottest times of the day. Especially nowadays that it's really hot. MMDA, as earlier mentioned, put the average temperature 34 degrees centigrade, no? But as we were talking earlier, there's a difference between the posted temperature by the Weather Bureau and the real field temperature, which can differ. Usually it's really hot in the city because of the buildings, the concrete, the heat from the asphalt, the pavements. This reflects heat. But if you're in the beach, it's different. If you're out in the forests, even if it's at sea level, it's different as well. So common sense should tell us that don't go out, don't get exposed during these times of the year, during probably between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
But you mentioned, Dr. Almeida, that when we're inside the building, the heat is different, right?
Yes.
Dr. Luchanco. And then when we're at the beach, it's different. In the province, it's different. But there's this notion that when we're inside a building, we are less prone to suffering from a heat stroke. Is that true?
Right. Well, actually, all the things that Dr. Almeida mentioned, no? Heat stroke, heat cramps, heat syncope, it's actually just part of a continuum of a process that happens in your body, that your body's overheating. So you're more prone to overheat if you're outside in the sun, you're getting hit by the sun's rays, but you can overheat anywhere. So if the room is hot, then you can overheat. And then dehydration is also a big part of that because the body cools itself with fluids. So even if you're not in the sun, if you're very dehydrated, your body will have a hard time maintaining temperature. And that's really what causes all of these symptoms in a continuum. So it gets worse and worse along the way until you reach the heat stroke.
So how hoping that we don't get to that part, heat stroke, what are the signs and symptoms that we should watch out for so that we don't get to the heat stroke, Dr. Chan?
Yeah, well, actually, I think the first thing to know is that it's very preventable. So as I mentioned, if your body's well hydrated, the body has a good way of regulating the heat. So it uses the fluid, and then it releases it in the form of sweat. So that's why when you're hot, it's sweat. But when that doesn't work, your body begins to compensate. No? So initially, you'll feel fatigue, you'll feel very thirsty. So your body's trying to tell you that there's something wrong, I'm not working properly, you need to do something about it. No? And often these are ignored, which leads you down the path to heat stroke.
Dr. Almeida, why are these signs and symptoms like overfatigue, maybe fainting also? Do we get clammy when we're suffering from a heat stroke?
Oh, you don't want to get clammy. Clammy is like that's when you get cold sweats. So that's already heat exhaustion. Usually before that happens, your skin becomes hot, so you can get, become more red than usual.
Is there swelling that happens?
Oh yeah, there is such a thing as heat edema, heat swelling. It's more common among the elderly. It's more common among those who do not take time to get used to the environment, to the heat. So their feet swell.
Okay.
But of course, you have to take in consideration as well other, we call comorbid or other illnesses that may be present in the elderly. Hypertension, kidney disease, diabetes. These make you more prone to suffering from heat emergencies.
Okay.
And that's why we have this sort of, we have this term as the high-risk age group.
What age group is this?
For these heat emergencies. And these are children that are younger than 4 years old, the elderly who are older than 65, those that have long-standing diseases, are under maintenance medication, they have to take extra care in keeping themselves away from the heat, keeping themselves in shaded environments, keeping themselves well hydrated by taking enough fluids.
These are the tips that we are sharing with
Yeah.
them already. But before we go to more tips, we have a question from our Facebook page.
Okay.
Doctors, are there tests to be done when someone suspects he is going through a heat stroke?
Well, heat stroke again. I probably the question is pertaining to heat stroke from the layman's term. So there's really no specific tests
Okay.
that can be done. But if you're talking about heat stroke from the medical standpoint,
Yes.
then this is already a medical emergency. You get brought to the hospital, and you're probably most definitely get your electrolytes measured.
Okay, so that is the test.
And I
for
think,
the
well, in
children.
answer to the question, if you suspect you're having a heat stroke, actually that's the first thing you should do is to prevent it from happening. So you don't even have to test to say, yes, I'm having heat stroke or not. Just already start to prevent it, which is really just hydration and things like that. No? So it's about fluids. So like Dr. Almeida mentioned, later if you have to end up in the hospital, they'll check for the fluid-related things like your electrolytes, your kidney function, and all of that. No, but that's later on. So the answer really is, if you suspect, then no need to test, just hydrate.
Hydrate
and
right
keep
away.
cool.
Keep cool and hydrate, not necessarily go to the hospital right
Yeah,
away.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So
that would be the
that's
first thing
first
to do.
thing
And
to
of course,
do.
by keeping cool, you mean what we mean is get yourself out of the heat.
Right.
No, go to a shaded part, fan yourself.
Remove
If-
excess clothing.
Remove
that
excess
might cause the heat
clothing.
to your body.
Spray yourself with tap water. Sometimes a lot of people would ask me, "What's the best type of clothing to wear in this heat, really hot times?"
Yes.
And the worst thing to wear is cotton, because
Why is
cotton soaks up sweat. There's such a thing when with people who are into sports and outdoor activities.
Yeah.
Cotton is the worst thing to bring. Jeans are the worst thing to bring also to wear,
Jeans and cotton.
because when you sweat,
material.
the sweat soaks up into the material, into the cotton, and once cotton gets wet, it stays wet. So it prevents your body from cooling itself by the wind cooling the sweat.
Doesn't get released.
Yeah.
no?
I think
Yes.
the important thing to remember really is to understand the way that your body deals with overheating, right? So what will happen is the reason you sweat is because the body brings the heat out to the periphery, to the sides, to their skin through the fluid, and that's why your sweat comes out. So when the heat comes out in sweat, then we expect the sweat to dry or to get taken away,
Yes.
and then you're able to release heat in that way, no? Which is why a lot of the sports clothing now are this
Dry fit.
mesh and
Dry
dries
material.
quickly.
Yeah.
It's because it allows the heat to dissipate through the clothing. It doesn't soak up the
Doesn't
sweat like
trap.
Dr. Almeida.
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
trap it.
So they really just have to understand that your body will try to throw out the heat through your skin, and anything that blocks it will keep the heat in.
Okay.
And anything that allows air,
Cool air to pass.
yeah,
to
that
pass
will
by.
help take the heat away.
Okay,
Yep.
that's good. And anything to help here on MedTalk. We have another Twitter question: is water enough to rehydrate myself during heat exhaustion, or do I need to take energy drinks?
Energy drinks, probably like what? Gatorade, Powerade,
Sports
Hydrite,
drinks.
sports drinks. These are better than just plain water. If you have them around, take them. Why? Because they're formulated to contain some salts, electrolytes. Water is, of course, the best. When you have nothing else, when you're out there and you just have water, take water. But you can't just keep on taking water when you are in a condition of heat exhaustion.
You can't just keep taking water. You have to take like
No.
an energy drink. How about buko juice? Is buko juice recommended to hydrate yourselves? Let's say you're camping or you're out in the forest, and
actually,
that's your
it's,
best option.
Well, actually, so the advantage of energy drinks over just plain water is the electrolytes that it has.
Yeah.
So these drinks are formulated to have the same amount or the same mix of electrolytes as your sweat. But actually, your body through your kidneys now really just keeps a good balance of electrolytes. So what you really need is the fluid or the water. The problem is later on when you've lost so much sweat, so you lose the electrolytes, and then you just keep on replacing only with water, then you don't replace the electrolytes. So later on, your body can't compensate anymore because you've lost too much electrolytes to compensate. But in the early stages, it's the fluid that you need. So water is enough. Buko juice or whatever is enough. And later on, when you lose lots of electrolytes and you don't replace them, that's when you start to have problems.
Okay, so we'll talk about those problems. We'll now move on to dehydration when MedTalk returns.
Did you know that the longest heat wave in the world was set in Marble Bar in Australia? It happened from October 31, 1923 to April 7, 1924, setting the heat wave record at 160 days.
We're back here on MedTalk. Now we'll be talking about dehydration. What happens to the body when one is dehydrated? Dr. Almeida?
Well, you lose fluids. And that's the number one thing about dehydration. When you do not take enough to replenish what you lose.
That's what we keep emphasizing, no?
Yes.
Take enough, take the right amount of liquids and the electrolytes.
So there's a lot of layman knowledge or information out there that says, okay, you have to drink 8 glasses of water a day, you have to consume 2 liters a day, whatever. It's all about your body will tell you when you are losing fluids. Your body will tell you through your taste buds, through feeling thirsty, through feeling hot, if you need to drink more.
Even if you're in an air-conditioned room, even if you're in a cool room, you still feel hot, and what the signs and symptoms? Maybe let's talk about the signs and symptoms.
Well,
Dr.
actually,
Chanco.
like Dr. Almeida mentioned, thirst is an early sign of you're beginning to get dehydrated. So your body's trying to tell you that you need to take in fluids. But sometimes when you're really busy, you have deadlines or something like that, you tend to ignore these subtle feelings. But actually, we just have to know that fluid loss and fluid balance is really a part of everyday life. It's not really a bad thing. We just have to keep on top of it, no? Because your body will really just manage the fluids through your kidneys, no? Your kidneys control how much fluid you're losing or not losing. But when we see dehydration, that's fluid loss that's gone overboard. You upset the balance of fluids, and that's what's dehydration.
You have to understand your body. You have to know how your body works and adjust to the different temperatures that you're in.
And talking about kidneys, your urine is a very, very practical gauge of your overall hydration. When number one, when you don't urinate every 4 hours when you're in a very hot environment, that's bad. When you urinate and your urine is very yellow or smells strongly, that's concentrated, so you need more fluids. So from the practical standpoint, if you feel dry mouth, your tongue is dry, you keep on licking your lips to generate more saliva. You go less to the bathroom, less to urinate. When you do urinate, it's a small amount, it's dark, it smells strongly, so means you need to take more fluids.
That's a sign already that you
Yeah.
are dehydrated.
The
Yeah.
thing about the kidneys is the kidneys do two things. They release waste and they release fluids. No, so waste is released at a standard. So I release the same amount of waste all the time, and then the fluids are balanced according to how much fluids you need. So if I have lots of extra fluids, I release a lot of fluids together with the waste, which is the same amount every time, right? So it becomes very dilute. Now, if I'm dehydrated, I need to keep my fluids. I'll release the same amount of waste, but very little fluid. That's why it becomes dark. So once your urine becomes dark or has color, that means that your kidney is keeping the fluids and releasing the waste. If it becomes light or it's clear, that means there's
Then you're
lots
okay.
of fluids together with the waste. Yeah, so that's why Dr. Almeida mentioned it's very practical. If you see color in your urine, that means you're not well hydrated enough.
And other people don't like drinking water.
They don't.
They
Yeah,
don't
I
like
know.
drinking water. So how do we remedy that situation? What can they take? Or is
I have
there
relatives who all they do is take iced tea. But, or they just take anything but
water? Yes. Yes.
They take juice, they take soft drinks. And since we're in the topic of health, and soft drinks are mainly caffeine and sugar, and that's the worst thing you can bring with you during a hot day.
Caffeine, you mentioned iced tea.
Beer, alcoholic beverages.
But they say it's nice to take a sip or have a bottle of cold
Oh,
beer when you're at the
yeah.
beach.
It is. I think it is.
There's nothing better than an ice cold beer.
Yes.
Yeah, no one naman said it wasn't nice. It's just that it will leave you prone to dehydration.
Yeah, but not at high noon,
Not at all.
not at the highest.
Is there a time? Is there but you have to have water
Sunset.
right beside you all the time.
Yeah.
Always.
When you take all
always.
these,
Keep yourself
liquids.
to dilute it. Alcohol, caffeine in coffee, tea, iced tea, soft drinks. These all promote your kidneys to excrete water. These are what you call diuretics, natural diuretics. So you're already in a hot environment. You're already losing fluids through your skin by sweating and evaporation. And then you take a caffeinated drink. You're not helping yourself at all.
So you really have to help yourself, hydrate yourself with the proper liquids.
Yeah.
And when you have liquids, you have solids. So let's go to our Facebook question. Are there any type of food that can prevent dehydration? So you mentioned for the liquid, no alcohol, no iced
Yes.
tea, soft drinks. How about food?
Food, the best I guess would be saltine crackers
Salt in
because
crackers.
of the salt.
Okay, what does the salt do to our body?
When you sweat, anybody who sweats, once the sweat is dry, you will notice a fine film of salt on your skin. That's because we lose salt through sweat. And anybody who goes mountaineering or outdoors will tell you that you need salt tablets and salty crackers because that's the best thing to replenish your lost electrolytes.
Oh, okay. And fruit?
Yeah.
Is fruit
Yeah,
good?
well,
Fresh fruit?
Fresh
Yeah,
fruits.
definitely.
Fresh fruits contain sugar, contain minerals, and water.
Okay.
Yeah, well, actually, at the center of it is really the fluid. No? When we're talking about dehydration, so it's really drinking lots of fluids. And then, if you want foods, then those that have a lot of fluid in, like watermelon, cucumbers, those have a lot of fluid content. But if we're talking about dehydration, definitely fluids is
Still the
the
best.
goal, is the center of it.
Okay, another question from our Facebook page. Do we need to eat cool food to cool down our body, or do we need to eat hot food to sweat it out? So fight heat with heat, cool with cool?
Cold's better.
Cold is better.
You want to when you're experiencing cramps already, which is one of the early signs of heat disease. Before you even reach heat exhaustion, that means that your core body temperature is going up. So you want to cool that down. That's the first thing you want to do. So iced drinks, cold showers, anything to cool your core temperature. The medical parameters for core heating is temperatures higher than 40 degrees centigrade of the core. That's different from the periphery, from your skin. Your skin may feel cold, but your inside,
Inside.
the feel is really hot. and that's bad for a lot of organs.
How about taking, you mentioned like a cold shower. Does that shock the system, or does it make your body...
Cold shower in the Philippines is tap water.
Okay.
It's not like
Not
you're
ice cold.
taking a shower
water.
with ice water, no? So your tap water is still the best way to cool yourself down. If you have a fever, we don't recommend that you do an ice bath. No, you just do tap water, sponges.
That's better than an ice.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing you just have to understand is that before you even start to think of these things, your body has already started to compensate, right? It's already starting to deal with the heat. So as Dr. Almeida mentioned, the core is hotter than the periphery. So once the body begins to feel that it's too hot, it will start channeling the heat out of the core to the skin so that it can be released, right? So when you say, should you eat hot foods in order to sweat it out, the sweat will happen naturally because your body is saying, get the heat out, right? So what we need to really do is put cool, especially into your stomach, because that's at the core, right? So you drink lots of cold fluids, goes in, cools the core, and helps push the heat out. So the sweat will happen naturally. You don't have to,
Do
provoke
anything
it.
or
Yeah.
provoke
Your
it. Our body
will do
really
that.
knows best. No, our body knows how to tell us.
Right.
It's
Before
up
you
to
even
us.
think of it.
Already, before we think of it, it
Yeah.
has already done its job.
Yes.
It has done its
Yes,
work
yes.
already. And here we have another question from our Facebook page. Is it possible to get dehydrated while swimming?
Oh, we were talking about that earlier.
Yes, Doc.
Yeah. I don't know if everybody who goes swimming, you will notice that after you swim, you feel hungrier, you feel thirstier,
Yes.
and you say, why do I feel thirsty? I'm in the water. But it's because you're in the water that you don't feel the sweat. You don't feel the heat building up. And you lose a lot of fluids while you're immersed in water. So it's that, and that notion is behind all of these survival suits for sailors, to keep the water in, to keep you out of the water. So when you are swimming, bring with you a bottle of your favorite sports drink, or
energy
water.
Or water.
Yeah.
So when you swim, you drink. While swimming, you drink. Don't wait until you're really, really very thirsty when you are in the water.
Sometimes, to wait until you're really, really thirsty, sometimes they just say, I can still manage.
Right,
I can
right.
still manage. I can still manage
Yes.
without water.
Especially the young, the teenagers, the athletes, they have a very, I would say they have a notion that they're very conditioned.
Okay.
And actually, I think one thing that's very important for us to know, right, is that one of the biggest heat sources or heat generators in the body is active muscles.
Yeah.
So when you're
exercise.
swimming, you use all your muscles, and these all heat up. So that creates heat in your body, which has to be dissipated. The advantage of being in water is that the heat can easily dissipate through the water. But you're actually generating a lot of heat when you use your muscles.
And then when you come out of the water,
You're not sweating.
you're not sweating anymore because you left everything inside the pool, inside the beach.
Then you feel thirsty, so you have to replenish.
Okay, so those are your valuable tips. If there's one thing that people have to remember so they don't suffer from a heat stroke or get dehydrated this summer, what would it be, Dr. Almeida?
Any book or even the internet will tell you, get out of the heat. If you can't get into an air-conditioned environment, find a fan yourself, drink fluids. And that's the most common knowledge and most sensible advice I could give.
Thank you very much, Dr. Almeida. Dr. Luchanco?
Well, it's all about hydration. So you have to know that you just have to help your body out. Your body's very good at compensating for things. You just have to understand that you need to help it out. So lots of fluids whenever you're in the heat. And the other good thing is that it's good for you anyway. So you almost can't drink too much fluids.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for helping all of us out.
Thank you.
For answering all our inquiries and all the questions that we had so that we don't suffer from a heat stroke or get dehydrated. Thank you again, Dr. Steve Almeda and Dr. Daniel Luchanco. See you again next Tuesday on MedTalk as we talk about autism. 10 p.m. when your scheduled on-air consultation here on the Solar News Channel. Before we sleep tonight, let's offer prayers for the victims of the Boston bombing. Thank you once again. This is Angel Jacob. Good night.